Okay. We didn't get to the 20, I thought, Fiona, but we'll get there. Thanks. Yeah, the beautiful day Fiona and I were just talking about, and I know Fiona's been doing a lot of other webinars with other sports, and it is the time of year, especially with everyone's Zoom overload, I think that numbers start to decline on these. So thanks everyone for participating. We're recording it as well, so we'll pop it up there for some people to watch later on. So as always, thanks everybody for joining us. We thought these webinars were really important to keep the community engaged during this time we're all living through, and keep everyone educated with some new information, and just have a little bit of sense of normalcy. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. We're going to plan for about an hour. So Fiona actually has some really great sort of engagement pieces during her presentation. There'll be some polling questions. We're going to do a little breakout session as well, just to keep everybody paying attention. So we'll just keep you guys all muted, and if you do have a question, you can put your hand up or drop it in the chat as per always. And if for some reason the connection is poor, just pop your video off, but I think we'll probably be okay. As always, for coach credits, you just want to pop your name into the chat, and once this series is over, I'll upload all of the credits to the coaching database. So 2 credits, or 1 credit, 1 professional development credit for every 2 sessions you attend. And next week will be our last presentation. Melissa Lacroix, who's a physiologist we work with from the CSIO, will be talking about physical literacy and windows of trainability. So that'll be next Wednesday. And then we'll probably take a pause on these for the summer. As we know, we're probably going to lose most people as summer in earnest starts. So tonight we've got Fiona, and Meikle is her last name. Did I pronounce that right, Fiona?
Yep, that's right.
Great. So Fiona is a professional member of the Canadian Sports Psychology Association and has been providing mental performance support to athletes, performance artists, the military, and businesses since 2010. Fiona is originally from Scotland, where she obtained her Bachelor of Science in Sports Medicine. Fiona went on to complete her Master's in Applied Sport and Exercise Psychology at Bangor University in Wales. After finishing her Master's, Fiona worked as a sports psychologist intern at the Sport Wales National Centre in Cardiff for 2.5 years. After a highly successful internship, Fiona was kept on as a consultant and provided support to Team Wales athletes for 7 years before moving to Canada in 2017. Fiona now works as a mental performance consultant for the Canadian Sport Institute Ontario, supporting Olympic, Paralympic, and provincial level athletes. And the first place we learned a little bit about Fiona was she gave a presentation to some PSOs early on in the COVID world, and thought that would be a great content to deliver directly to our coaches. So hence why we've got Fiona here. So thanks so much, Fiona. I know you've got your presentation rolling here, so I'll let you take it over, and when you're ready in your presentation, I'll pop the polls up.
Thanks for the introduction, Robin. As Robin mentioned, if you have any questions at any point, just feel free to send the messages in the chat. And if you could direct them to Robin, because I can't actually see the chat while I'm presenting, and then Robin will ask the questions for you. So to start out with, we're going to do a quick poll, just so I can see who we've got on the call and what kind of your experience is, what age of athletes you coach, and how many years you've been coaching. So if you answer those questions for me just now.
We'll just give it another 10 seconds or so. We're at about 80% have voted. Another 10 seconds or so, and
okay,
we'll shut her down.
Okay, so kind of spread out through age groups, the majority being under 14, under 16, and that 83% in 10 plus years. So lots of experience there. Okay, which is great because that's what I'm going to use you guys for during this session. Okay, so today I'm going to outline the current training recommendations and discuss how the COVID situation can be experienced by all your athletes of various age levels, and how their experience of COVID can be affecting their motivation to train. I'll then go through various tips and tools and strategies that you guys can use to help motivate your athletes. There's also things that you can do to help motivate yourselves. We're then going to go into small groups and have breakout discussions. After we've had those discussions, we'll come back as a big group and go through your answers to the questions I provide. And at the end, I'm going to go through some additional resources that you guys can use to help yourselves and your athletes through this situation. So the COPSN Sport Medicine Advisory Committee, based on their current recommendations, are saying that as per previous updates, we strongly encourage athletes to take this enforced self-isolation period to work with their coaches, HBDs, IST, and CMOs to address any known biomechanical and physical deficiencies that are easily addressed with home training, and not to be attempting to reach peak performance this summer. In addition, we also recommend taking this opportunity to work on mental resilience and mental training. So I've highlighted not to be attempting to reach peak performance this summer because it's of most importance to yourselves as coaches as well as your athletes. Health, both physical and mental, is still very much the most important factor right now. So it's important that your athletes are aware of this information so that they know they're not expected to be reaching peak performance anytime soon, and that their health is the priority right now. Being aware of other people's situations is going to be key to understanding why people will be experiencing differing levels of motivation right now. So as I said, everybody's experiencing the COVID-19 situation differently. Some people will cope really well. It might not affect them in the slightest, and they'll just keep doing what they've always done. But others may be drastically affected. Some athletes may have friends or relatives that get sick and pass away, or they themselves might get sick. Some athletes may have an underlying condition which puts them at risk of getting the virus, or they may be living with somebody who's vulnerable to picking it up. Some athletes will have parents that have had to go to work and be at increased risk of getting the virus, and some athletes may have parents who've actually lost their jobs. They themselves may have lost their jobs. They may be worried about graduating high school, finishing their schoolwork, whether or not they'll be able to start university in the fall or get a summer job. Some athletes may be living with siblings or parents that you don't necessarily get along with, and some may even be living with abusive family members. In isolation, it can be really difficult to remember that not everyone is experiencing what you are personally experiencing. Not everyone's in the same situation as you. So before we start thinking about how do we get our athletes motivated, I want to take a step back and remind you that you guys are all people and your athletes are all people. And your mental and physical health needs to come first. And if you prioritize your athletes' health and consider them as people first, then this will more likely than not motivate them and keep them engaged in the sport. So this is the typical phases of disaster model, which was from Zunin and Mayers. So the pre-disaster part was back in January and February when we started hearing rumors and talk of this virus that was happening in China, but it wasn't directly affecting many people in Canada. So we had some warning signs, but for the majority of us, we didn't really think that much about it. We then hit the impact, which is around March. The virus hit and everything gets shut down. We can't go to work, the kids can't go to school, you can't train, you've got to stay at home, and you can't see anybody except immediate family members. This then took us straight into the heroic phase. So the heroic phase is about survival. It's about rescuing others and promoting safety. And a great deal of energy goes into this rescuing, assisting, and making sure all the emergency repairs and cleanups are being done. And it can last a few hours to a few days. And for the COVID situation, this is when everyone was really bought into the public health guidelines. They were doing everything they could to protect themselves and others around them. And it's when you start to hear those really great stories of strangers helping each other out. But then we got to the honeymoon phase, when there's still some optimism, community bonding, there's formal assistance being brought in, but our energy begins to deplete, fatigue starts to set in. Although despite there being a pandemic, everybody's pitching in, we're all helping out, we're all doing what we can to flatten the curve, we're really trying to get on top of it. But then we realize that we're in this for the long haul. It's not going to be over in just a few weeks like we thought it might. The situation we're in now is going to last. The kids aren't going back to school anytime soon. We're not going back to work properly anytime soon, unless you're one of the healthcare workers or working in a grocery store. So this takes us down this very steep cliff, basically jumping off a cliff here, right into the disillusionment phase. When your fatigue really sets in, you're starting to deal with all these really cumbersome procedures, and you start to realize the limits of the disaster assistance that we have. And the politics of the disaster response become a lot more apparent. This is also when the symptoms related to stress intensify and hope decreases. But we do start to build back up through this disillusionment phase, as we start to come to terms with what's happening, and we have the support systems in place that we need to overcome adversity. And this is a part where our resilience and motivation is really key. This then takes us back up into the reconstruction phase, our new beginning. So this is when we need to start solving problems and rebuild and start assuming responsibility. And we'll always have those ongoing needs to readjust and integrate to our new surroundings, and we'll continue to grieve our losses as well. But we also start to see new meaning things, there's personal growth and opportunity. A lot of people will start to really re-examine life priorities and perspectives, but we do start to return to our pre-disaster levels of well-being. But there are a lot of variations in rates of progression. So it could take someone 2 months, or it could take somebody up to 36 months to go through this part. So if you think about this model in terms of your athlete's motivation to train. So if we go back to the beginning of pre-disaster, I imagine a lot of your athletes were pretty high in terms of motivation because they're coming to the end of their season. They want to go out on a high. They're getting ready to compete nationals or provincials. And then the impact comes, and disaster hits. You can't complete your season. You can't go to nationals. You can't even have your end of season team celebration. So at that point, your motivation to train goes down, but you also don't really know the severity of the situation yet. And you're distracted by everything else that's going around that you probably don't really notice your levels of motivation at that point. We then go into our honeymoon phase. This is when we start to readjust to the new phase in our lives. But also you realize that not only are you not going to be training now, you're not going to be back on the slopes anytime soon, maybe not at all this year. So you're having motivation to do anything, never mind train, is probably really low in this honeymoon phase, going into the disillusionment phase. So in the disillusionment phase, your motivation will start really low, but as I say, you start building up by learning skills. And you start relying on each other more. And that takes you into the reconstruction phase. And the difficulties that the reconstruction phase brings are the fact that we've never done this before. We don't really know what going back to training looks like. I know that quite a few sports are starting to go back now, but it's very much a trial and error. They're making educated guesses based on what other countries have been doing. And it's so different from country to country and how they've experienced the COVID situation. It's even different from province to province and what the guidelines are. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the skills and abilities to be able to figure it out. So we'll need to work together, help each other build up our motivation levels so that we can come out of the starting gates as mentally and physically strong as we can based on what we have and what information we have. So thinking about this model, I'd like you to answer the next 3 questions for a poll. So which phase of disaster are you personally currently in? What are your current levels of motivation? And what are the current motivation levels of your athletes that you've been working with?
a real test to see who's paying attention.
Yeah.
We're at about like 60%, 70%. Oh yeah, we're right there. We're just about there. I'll give it like just another 15 seconds or so.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a pretty engaged group. That's good.
Good, everybody staying awake. Haven't disappeared off into the sunshine.
Yep, not yet. Okay, yeah, we got about almost 100%. Here we go.
Okay, perfect. So we've got one still in the honeymoon phase, few in the disillusionment phase, and a couple have actually the rest have actually made their way into the reconstruction phase, which is great. In terms of motivation, majority are in the moderate, a couple in the high, and for athletes, same, majority are in the moderate levels of motivation with just one in the high. So that's completely understandable. It's really hard to have high motivation when you can't really go anywhere yet. So thank you for that. So in terms of motivation, I've spoken to a lot of athletes over the past few months about their motivation levels, and I've heard responses from both ends of the spectrum. So some athletes have no motivation at all, so it's good to see that none of you have said that you've all got some motivation at least. And some athletes don't even show any interest right now in training, right? They're considering leaving their sport. They don't really know if they want to continue at all. Other athletes are on the way other end of the spectrum in that they're more motivated than they've ever been. They can't wait to get back to training, and they're doing everything they possibly can to, and everyone else is somewhere in between. It's therefore important that when you start discussing motivation with your athletes, you don't assume that they don't have any motivation because of the COVID-19 situation, because they may be doing just fine. It's also important that you don't assume that they have lots of motivation because they're athletes and athletes are supposed to be motivated to train, because during this situation, it's just not reasonable to really think like that. If you yourselves think about yourselves of how your motivation levels have changed throughout this on a daily basis, your athletes will be experiencing the same. I've had a lot of coaches say to me, if my athlete's not motivated to train, I don't really want them on my team. But if we go back to thinking about athletes as people and not robots, and reminding yourselves that everybody's situation is very different. We don't really know what everybody's experiencing. So it's important to remember, okay, think about that individual situation and ask how you can help them get their motivation levels back up. So ways of asking your athletes about their motivation include, what are your thoughts about this situation? And what are your motivation levels like? When you're asking these questions, it's important to avoid insinuating that there's an issue, such as how are you feeling during these hard times? Or are your motivation levels really low because of this terrible situation? It's better to let the athlete decide how they want to perceive their situation. And be careful not to instill panic when there is none. As I said, many athletes may be doing just fine. So if you refer to the situation as a crisis, then they might start to perceive it that way when they hadn't before. As I keep saying, everybody's experiencing this situation differently. Some people on this call may have been laid off from jobs or have partners who have been laid off from jobs. Some may have lost money due to the market crash. Some will be struggling with managing kids while trying to work full time. Others may have vulnerable family members to worry about. So if you are personally stressed out, lacking focus and motivation, which is completely understandable during this time, it's important that you guys are all practicing self-care. If you need to reschedule a call or some work to take some time for yourself, do it. It's important to be mindful of how your own personal state may affect others. So as they say on an airplane, even though we might not be going on one anytime soon, make sure you put your own oxygen mask on first before you help those around you. So as I said, a lot of athletes I've worked with have mentioned a lack of motivation to train, and especially just now when things are starting to get back up, but not really. A lot of them feel really quite stuck, like this person here. And it's completely understandable that they've lost motivation. They don't know when they're going to be able to train again full time. They don't know when they'll be able to compete again. They don't even know when they're going to be able to get back on the slopes. Having future goals really helps to increase motivation. but right now we don't know what the future holds. And the goals our athletes had for this calendar year might not be possible anymore this year. So I ask you this, do your athletes need to be motivated right now? By letting them know that it's okay to feel demotivated, you'll likely reduce the guilt, pressure, and stress that they may be experiencing as a result of not feeling motivated, which in turn could actually increase their motivation to train. Examples of ways that you can convey this are, it's okay to not be motivated right now, or you can afford to be demotivated right now. Remind them again that their health is priority just now. Ask them what exercises they want to do to maintain their health and physical activity. If they're able to choose what they'd like to do, this can give the athlete a sense of control in a very uncontrollable situation. This also helps to increase their motivation to train. And for those athletes on the other end of the spectrum who are daydreaming of being back on the slopes and can't wait to get out there and are doing everything they can to make sure they're in peak physical form when they do, I do actually have some athletes that I've come across that are training too hard. They're pushing themselves way too hard and they're compromising their immune system. Some are even taking risks by not physically distancing so they can train more effectively. So for those athletes on that other end of the spectrum, again, it's important to remind themselves that health is priority and they don't need to be taking these risks. A lot of the athletes are pushing themselves too hard because they're worried about losing their spot on the team, or they want to earn a spot on the team, or because they want to beat their competitors when they get back to it. So again, remind your athletes to put their health first. And by doing that, it's important that you say this to them of something like, right now your health and the health of those around you is what's most important. Training is going to be about maintaining your health. Here's an example of some of the things that we can work on. Help the athletes understand that while it's great to be motivated to train, we want to make sure that they're not putting themselves or anyone else at risk, and that there's plenty they can do to help keep their competitive edge. Whether it's more of a biomechanical thing or physiological or mental, there's plenty they can be doing. Finding ways to keep your athletes engaged in their sport and their team is a great way to increase motivation. So it's important that we give them a support system and communicate with them so that they feel supported. If they feel supported, they're much more likely to want to continue to engage in their sport. They'll trust yourselves as coaches more and their teammates. So contact your athletes on a regular basis. Ask them how they're doing and what they're experiencing. And if you can, do this on a platform such as Zoom, which enables video because it makes it much more personal. This in turn helps increase the likelihood that they're going to engage in their sport because they're engaging with you. They're being reminded of what they're working towards. Just to note that when you are engaging with athletes on a virtual platform, you must also comply with the Safe Sport rules, the rule of 2 for virtual meetings. So I'll go into that in a little more detail later. And importantly, show empathy. This will help show the athletes that you know they're not robots, that they're human, that you care about them, that you understand what they're going through. Again, this increases their trust in you and therefore increases the likelihood that they'll continue to engage in their sport. I know that everyone has various levels of empathy skills, but like a muscle, empathy can be strengthened, but it can also atrophy when idle. It's therefore important that you're honest with yourself about your ability to be empathic, and regardless of how empathic you are, that you practice being so. So in the resource pages at the end of this slideshow, there's going to be links to various things that you can do to make sure that you're working on these skills. I know that empathy isn't necessarily a strong point for a lot of coaches, so it is important that you are working on it. There's a lot of things that you can easily do from home, podcasts and things you can read that can help you with this. And connect with them as a team for training if you can. So give them a platform to connect with each other and with yourself, and consider doing team workouts that you can alter so that they can all do it at home in the environment with what they have. So you could review video together as well, have educational sessions, work on things you might not have time for normally, and provide them with information and resources on how they can train at home safely. And you can do this by meeting as a group on platforms such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams. You can also provide your team with suggestions on how they can stay connected as a team and continue to be there for each other. This is the #1 thing that athletes have asked me about recently, especially the younger athletes, kind of the under 20 age group. They just want somebody to talk to, somebody to share their experiences with, somebody to reminisce about the good times before this situation and, looking forward to what might happen next year. So to help them do this, you can set up a platform with them or get them to engage in team challenges, team game nights, or just a friendly check-in. So there's a couple of apps that are fairly popular for this kind of thing. So there's one called the House Party app and one called Jackbox TV, which are a great way to play trivia games as a group. Other teams have done baking challenges on Instagram or a team bingo in which they have to complete certain tasks in a certain time frame. But the main thing is get your group connecting, get your athletes talking to each other again. Give them this support system and this outlet. Talking to people in the same situation, knowing that they feel the same, they're not alone, can really help to increase their engagement and as a result, their motivation. So I'm now going to show you a short video by comedian Meikle Jr., who is going to describe another way to increase motivation.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Meikle Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Meikle Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Meikle Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now, right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
Let's go. Now, that's real sad. Okay, here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
Okay. So this is the most influential factor I have found that helps athletes find their motivation and desire to continue engaging with their sport. It's going back to their why. Back to why they started doing their sport in the first place. Go back to the basics of their sport, just doing it for fun. I had an athlete tell me recently that when my coach said that I only had to train to maintain my health, I started enjoying training a lot more. I got a lot more out of training than I used to. It reminded me of why I got into the sport in the first place, and I ended up wanting to do more than I did before going into self-isolation. Knowing your purpose, knowing your why is your fuel. It's your motivation. So ask yourself, what is your why? Why do you coach? Why did you start coaching, and why do you continue to do so? And challenge yourself to come up with 3 different answers to this question of why. And then get your athletes to do the same thing. Get them to reflect back on their why, and it can really help them to stay motivated, even if all they can do right now is limited conditioning. As you've all said, the majority of you have 10 plus years of experience. So we're going to use that experience just now by breaking out into small groups for group discussions. So I know that you will all have various ways of motivating your athletes and yourselves. So I'm going to use these breakout groups so that you can share this with each other. Share with each other what you do, so that you can learn from each other, and we can have a very long list of all the different things that you can try over the next few months. Hopefully it won't be longer than that, to help people engaged in their sport while we go through this situation. So I'd like you to nominate one person in your group, when you're put into your group, to take notes. And I ask that the person taking notes completes them in the Google Doc. So you should be able to access by either clicking on the link in the slide, and if that doesn't work, Robin's going to put the link into the chat room. So if you could all take a minute just to look in the chat box, click on the link, and just make sure that it opens before I send you out into your breakout rooms. So there's, I think, about 16 of you. So we'll go into 4 groups of 4. And Robin's going to put you into your groups, and it's going to be done at random. So please take note of your group number when it pops up, and then you can complete the allocated row in the document. And before you head into your groups, just a reminder to please be polite. Try not to interrupt when somebody else is talking. Be mindful of sharing and oversharing. And make sure that everybody has the opportunity to share if they want to, but it's completely okay if they don't. And can be completely open to other people's ideas and experiences. Meet these ideas with curiosity. Ask questions such as what, when, how, and where, as why questions tend to put people on the defensive. If there's any problems at any point, just put a message in the chat box for myself or Robin at any time. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that before we get started? Anyone having issues with any questions?
Nothing's come up in the chat, so I'll pop you guys into groups. And is 15 minutes what you want to spend in the groups, Fiona?
Yeah, we'll give you, actually we'll do 10, so we've got time afterwards to make sure we've got time to talk about it. So we'll do 10 minutes, and we'll give you a 1-minute warning to let you know when it'll be finishing up. Okay, so Robin's going to put you into those groups just now, so we'll just take a few minutes to do that. Okay, so make sure you take a note of these questions as well. I don't know if you'll be able to see them once you're in the groups. So just give yourself time to introduce yourselves, and then start discussing what have you been doing to try to increase your athletes' motivation and your own motivation, what's worked and what hasn't worked.
So Stuart and Will, you should have something on your screen that allows you to join the group I've put you in. That seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah.
That video was great.
Yeah, I love it.
It's, but I wasn't sure where it was going, and then when he got him to do it the second time, then it made a lot of sense. I'm not sure how to put Stuart into a group. You must have to.
Maybe we'll just sign.
It allows me to move him to a different room, but I don't know why he can't just get in. Not sure how to put you in the room, Stuart, but you should have some sort of message that pops up on your screen, and you just have to join. Everyone else has somehow made it in.
If you're struggling to get in, you can write down your own answer, Stuart, and you can join in the big group discussion. And
Yeah, if you've got the link there, Stuart, to the document, you can do that.
oh, we've got people filling it out, so I know it's working. That's good.
It's a great idea. Haven't seen it work this way before live. It's great. And when I look at the makeup of the groups, I can tell which ones will probably be more proficient with getting the. I probably know who's typing right now of that group.
It's, yeah, I've got group 1 completing it fairly quickly.
That's interesting. It's a really cool tool. I like it. And do you have like these daily, Fiona, with other sports?
I have one-to-one sessions pretty much daily with other sports, and I do webinars probably about once a week.
Yeah, I'm sure the one-on-one stuff is probably a lot of the work right now, right?
It is, yeah. Every time something else comes out in the news about what's happening next or what's not happening next, there's been a lot of challenges. And at least people can get out now. It was definitely more of a struggle 3 weeks ago when it was only 10 degrees.
Yeah, and even when we wanted to, I mean, when we first saw your content, that would have been, was that end of May you gave that session to all the PSOs? I can't remember. It was, I feel like it was a one.
April.
Was it? It could have been even
It was
April.
April,
Yeah. So much has changed since then.
yeah. And now I can actually go out.
I know. Yeah, and here in Collingwood, where our office is based, it's a lot different than many other places in Ontario. That's for sure.
Are you, because you're very much a tourist destination over the
Yeah.
summer?
Yeah,
Do
so
you
it gets
stay shut down, or are you?
Yeah, we have we've been shut down and all working from home, but the town is, patios are open and a lot of businesses are open, so a lot of people are coming up here,
Oh wow.
which is what it is.
Yeah.
It's what this community counts on, right? So. Give them I don't know, 4 more minutes.
Yeah. We're starting to get more responses in there.
Good.
That's good.
This will be the section of the video recording that won't be as interesting for everybody watching it after the fact.
I'm gonna edit this part out.
Yeah, I'll probably edit that part out. So would normally at this time, what would you normally be doing, Fiona? Would you be traveling with teams?
Yeah, so I guess for June, yes, it's gonna be one of our last training camps before the team is headed to Tokyo.
For the Olympics, yeah, right. So yeah, it's completely upended all wow.
I gotta admit, it's kind of nice that I don't have to go anywhere.
I mean, there are the trade-offs, but I think about just the mental fortitude now required for so many of those Olympic athletes, especially if they were planning on retiring or taking a break, that now they've got to extend it for another year.
It's the biggest challenge. The athletes who, for it was their first games, are actually excited that they've got a whole other year to prepare. And for the athletes, they had a lot of athletes that had acceptances at universities and had plans for starting families and doing various other things, 1st of September, and now they're having to decide. Some are still undecided about what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's how they train. So a lot of tough decisions to make. But then a lot of universities are only opening up virtually, so do they actually want to go back right then if that's what it's going to be doing? So.
Yeah, it's a weird climate, right?
Yeah.
So bizarre.
But I think we'll all be able to officially say that we can handle anything now.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think everyone's built up a decent amount of fortitude as a result.
Yep.
I will bring everybody back now.
Okay. So if you want to give them, I think you can give them a minute warning.
Gives them a minute warning, yeah. That's pretty cool. I like that. We haven't tried this yet, so
See what they think about it.
yeah, it's a great idea. And I like the ability to sort of just get the engagement as you go.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of relief for people as well, not having to just sit and listen to me talk for a whole hour. You can talk to other people, learn some other stuff, especially.
I hear you.
a group that's got so much knowledge and experience.
Welcome back, everybody.
Okay, have we got everybody?
So, yeah.
Yep, great. So if we could have somebody volunteer from group 1 to share your responses, that would be great.
Put whoever's with group 1 who wants to chat, let me know and I'll unmute you. Victoria? I knew it was going to be you, Victoria. I knew it.
I was the one that took notes, so I figured it made sense.
I knew it. I could pick it out of each time. I knew it was going to be.
So funny. We had a few different things that happened. We had people that did year-end parent-athlete Zoom call chats. Our club did a team fitness challenge where for a whole month, every day we did, there were 10 different exercises, and every day we kind of did 4 of them and kind of built on those, just so that every day it was sometimes only 15 minutes, but it was time that they didn't have to spend with their immediate family or whoever they were with. There was another club did just a team social call, so nothing to do with any ski related, just talking and giving them a time to get away from, their family who maybe they had spent the last month with, they were the only people they were able to converse with. Another team did the XSS challenge. And then there were a few others that did social media challenges where they asked people in the club just to send them photos of what they were doing to stay active. So it was just interesting way to keep them engaged without necessarily having to give a lot of time to it.
Great, thank you very much. Group 2? Volunteer from group 2?
That you will?
Yeah, group 2, I guess myself and Rob were actually the only 2 of the group who sort of directly coach athletes on a regular basis. Then rest of our participation was Brian, who's a head coach, and Nathleen. And we just sort of, especially coaching U14, U16, which is the bulk of people on this call. Our engagement with athletes, I guess was very similar. Sort of see them on their way with some dryland programming, find out what they have available, check in fairly often, through April, sort of get them going. But a lot of us, we change over athletes this time of year, and it's hard. U12, U14, U16. This is the notorious age group where they go off to do other summer activities. We generally, as coaches at this age group, have not a great deal of contact with them. It's more of making sure they got things set. They're involved in other sports. In this case, there are no other sports to get involved with, so personal fitness is what they have. So we get them set up, and we try and check in. But again, with most people on this call, we don't necessarily know who our athletes are going to be next time round. So for myself, I know I've stayed in touch with some of my past athletes, and 1 or 2 of them are going to be athletes again for the season coming. The kids moving up from U14 into U16, I haven't had a lot of contact with them as of yet. So it's tough. It's tough going. Sort of making the best of a bad situation, but ultimately it's. I as a coach, especially at this age group, it's up to the kids to sort of be motivated themselves. I give them as much encouragement as I can, but it's up to their parents too to find the activities and the facilities to keep them activated. But I did say I very much liked your line, Fiona, there, that the focus of fitness right now at all levels should be on wellness and not peak performance. I thought that was a very good line.
Thanks. It sounds like it's definitely going to be a tough one for you guys. So when would you normally do that kind of changeover? When would they move up to the next age group? What time of year?
Well, I mean, in the younger age groups, you might generally know who's moving in the spring, but with the way things ended, and not knowing who's going to commit to what level of program next year, at least at the club level, we're somewhat at a loss as to who will make up what level of programming at the clubs come next winter.
So I guess that's the next topic of discussion for you guys, is how to re-engage everybody once the season starts up again.
I mean, even in a normal year, trying to get answers from various families as to what you're going to do next winter over the summer is a challenge at this age group.
Okay, great. So thank you, Group 2. And Group 3, do we have a volunteer from Group 3 to share your responses?
I can't recall who was in Group 3. If no one wants to volunteer, I suppose we can just read off the
volunteer. No. Okay. Well, I can share the screen. Can you all see that, or do I need to share again? Okay, so Group 3, so that not each of you are in contact with athletes for the upcoming, I guess that's what you were talking about there, Will. Some are doing a variety of Zoom meetings. Some athletes are in the under 19 plus group, so schedules and roles can include children and families. There's those things to work around as well. And I've been doing check-ins. So it sounds like everybody started off great. Start out with the Zoom calls. Did any of you have any sort of end of year team meeting or celebration like you normally would have, but virtually? Did anybody attempt to do any kind of thing like that?
I don't think there was a lot. I don't think there was a lot, no.
No, it came a little too quick and fast for anything to be really done. So we're at the moment, just do what you can with what you've got. Be engaged with the athletes you can be engaged with. If there are some that aren't responding, or if you've got a group where you don't know who they're going to be, and just do what you can with what you've got. Don't pressure yourself to try and go way too far above and beyond. When, as we say, we don't really know what's going to be happening in the next few weeks, never mind the next few months. But as things start to build up, use each other as resources. Ask each other what you've been doing, what's working, how are you engaging new athletes, or what are you going to do as a club? Share your experiences that you can help each other out and help build each other back up again. So I'm going to share my screen with you again just to finish off the presentation. So we've got about 8 minutes to go. Okay. So just as a reminder, when you are connecting with your athletes on virtual platforms, ensure that you're applying the rule of 2 in that virtual setting. So there's links here to guide you through that as part of the Safe Sport. I've also got several resources here for you to help your athletes, to help you guys as coaches, and to support the parents as well through this situation. It includes things of how to increase your motivation, how to support each other, and different tools and skills that you can use and build up. So Game Plan has a great resource there for those that are eligible, and the CSIO has a link on their website to a resource hub, which is great as well. Then in terms of empathy, there's 3 different websites here that you can read about to help build up your own empathy. So there's a podcast and a couple of different articles. And then there's the link at the bottom there to the video we've just watched in case you'd like to watch it again or share it with somebody else. These are my contact details. So if you have any questions after this that you would like to ask about, or anything else, any further information you'd like, please don't hesitate to get in touch at any time. And I'll leave the last few minutes for questions if anybody has any.
Victoria has asked a question about the your presentation. So yeah, I'll post this if you're okay with that, Fiona, to
Yep.
to our website, so you guys can have all those resources. I'll get it up there by the end of the week, hopefully. You mentioned, I've got one question, Fiona. You mentioned just when you went through your resources there, some information for parents. I think we all know, and a lot of people on this call know, the impact that parents have on this level of 12 to 15-year-old athletes, and all the, like yourself, trying to juggle schooling kids at home while everyone's trying to work is a struggle. So I wonder if sport is going to be something that can hopefully lighten the load for parents. So we all need to be aware of the fact that parents are going to be as critical of a piece to communicate with and be a part of that motivation discussion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to remind the parents that having the sport in your sport isn't another burden. It's not something else they have to worry about, or not something else they have to do with their kids during the week. This is actually going to really help their kids, because they'll be given that outlet. They'll have that physical exercise to do. They'll have their teammates for support and their coach for support. So by engaging just now, it's going to really actually help lighten their load, because their kids are going to have something else to do. They're going to be occupied. They're going to have other people. And so it's using the parents to help motivate the athletes. So motivating the parents to then motivate the athletes.
Yeah. And to your point, Will, I mean, we don't really know, when you're going to get commitments from families, because we don't really know what next year's going to look like yet. So it is hard to engage people when we don't really know what the future holds. But I find just engaging with you as coaches, as a group during this time, and show that we can, stay connected and stay talking about relevant topics together, is hopefully going to make that next season that much better, So I know some of you are already doing it with your athletes. We're doing it pretty successfully with our high performance programs. So I certainly encourage you, with the rule of 2 in mind, to figure out a way to reach out to your athletes, even if they're graduating athletes you won't deal with. It's going to help all the programs in the future and help motivation. Does anyone have any other questions for Fiona? Put your little hand up, or you can type it in the chat. Let me just check the chat to see if there's any in there.
Nope. Okay, well, I've been told the rule of thumb is you give everybody 10 seconds and there's no questions, then you're good to go. So
Wait, looks like Sko's got a question. Go ahead, Sko.
Oh, there we go.
I just unmuted you. You just gotta press. There you go.
Yeah, so for those of us who do not have contact with the athletes, the potential athletes that for the upcoming season, when we actually have contact with them, any suggestions on how we can address whatever the new dynamic is, what their experience was throughout this, and then how to maybe shift the mindset from, oh my God, to let's get going kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously I can't really predict what it's going to be like in a few months, but if we go based on what it is now, of things still being virtual, of just setting up a team meeting over something like Zoom, get everybody to introduce themselves, share a little bit about each other, where they're from, what school they go to, what their favorite subject is, just to make those introductions.
So those team building kind of.
Yeah, do a little team building, do one of some team trivia or something to get them engaged and having a bit of fun. And then you can set up smaller group sessions or even one-to-ones, taking into account the rule of 2, to give them a chance to express any concerns they have. Because going back to training isn't going to be difficult physical as well. It's more going to be more mental. So they can still work on some of their physical stuff at home. They can also work on the mental stuff, but there are a lot of mental health considerations for returning to sport. There might be a lot of stress and concern about catching the virus if they're now around a lot more people and bringing it home to their parents or to any vulnerable family members. They might be concerned that they're not at the same level they used to be, or that they'll be selected for the team this year. And there can be any number of concerns. Again, some may be completely fine and not even consider any of this at all, but there will be others that are on the other end of the spectrum and have severe levels of anxiety. So it is important you ask and give them a platform to ask. So even if it's something like sending out a team questionnaire to everybody that they can send to you of just thoughts and considerations of how do you feel about returning to training? Is there anything that we can do to help you prepare for this? And when you do start to make that return, so let's say you're returning to the slopes, of having a team meeting to go through what that first week or two is going to look like. So everybody's going to be at various different levels of physical ability at that point. So it's important you take those weeks and tell everybody those weeks are just about getting used to things again, getting used to being in group, getting used to being back on your skis, in your boots. I mean, I don't imagine they're walking around their boots in the summer, but you know, some eager people might be. And going through, you know, if there's things for, you know, only 1 or 2 people in the chairlift at a time, and if you can't stop for a coffee or hot chocolate anywhere, so parents haven't got anywhere to sit, and whatever those new restrictions might be. So having that time as a team to lay all that out, give them an opportunity to ask questions during that session, and then have a follow-up session afterwards, because it often takes a couple of days for people to really digest that information. And parents as well.
Ask whether or not you should let them control how long the discussion goes, meaning whether it's the first day, the first weekend, the first month, whatever.
Yeah.
Have them control that rather than you as the coach?
A bit of both. So continue to ask how they're doing so that they know you're open to hearing the answer, but also let them control, again, coming to you. But just make sure you have that platform so they can ask you questions. Okay. And also it's important, I mean, it's going to depend on when you're going back to training and what the virus is like. But for a lot of summer sports just now, it's not being made mandatory. So if there's any athletes that are concerned that it's going back to training is going to cause them or their family harm by being around other people, make sure that they know it's not mandatory if it's not at the time. Or that it's not going to affect their position in the team if they choose not to go back, because we know that their health, physical and mental, is the most important thing right now.
Sweet.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
That was 10 seconds.
Okay, there we go. Again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to email myself or Robin, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Thanks so much, Fiona. That was great, and it never ceases to amaze me that we continue to learn things as a group every week. So I really do appreciate you taking the time, and thanks to CSIO as well. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday evening, whatever it holds. And we'll see you guys next week, hopefully, if you tune in for the next webinar with Melissa.
Thank you very much for attending and giving up your very sunny Wednesday afternoon.
Right. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Thanks, Fiona. That was great.
You're welcome. Hope that was covered as much as I could in the hour and covered what you guys needed to know.
Yeah, I love it when I'm able to walk away with like a nugget or two. I think that's really, really helpful, and I think the engagement level with the breakouts and the polls it doesn't feel like it's an hour, you know, it feels like
it went by very quickly, which is good.
Yeah, that is good. I mean, I've been texting back and forth to Kip, who's our director of high performance. It's like, I wish we had more people on this. It'd be great to have more people, but here we are.
Well, you can email them the link to the recording and watch it at some point.
Yeah, that's great. And if you want to send me your presentation when you're ready, and I'll pop that up.
I'll do that now so I don't forget.
That'd be awesome.
And if you do need any further support or advice for that the return to training part, because it is a tough a tough part, just let me know because I'm working
Yeah.
through it.
That'd be super. I mean, something in the fall again for our coaches when, you know, they're more engaged and it's more tangible what the plan's going to be. That would probably be a great idea. So we'll keep in touch on that for sure. And I suspect we'll continue doing stuff virtually like this. We usually do like a big in-person coaches conference, but it's likely that won't happen. So
Yeah.
It'll be a virtual situation. So you'll keep fine tuning your presentations to give virtually, I'm sure.
Yes.
But yeah, that was awesome.
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.